Good morning, Brampton. Welcome to Monday Assembly. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month. We're going to be learning a little bit about the history and what the purpose of the month is. Every June we celebrate and embrace the Gypsy Roma Traveller community, and we look at some of the differences and traditions of that community. In order for us to celebrate it though, we need to know a little bit more about it. So I've got this fantastic video that I found from the Traveller Times, which we're going to have a little watch of right now.
Gypsies, Roma and travellers are three words that stand for a lot of different people. Just like with everyone, Gypsy, Roma and traveller people have things in common with each other, and some things that are different. But to understand this story now, it's important to go back to the beginning. Living in one place is a recent thing. People were nomads for 99% of our history, travelling around to survive. Then about 10,000 years ago, something changed. People realised that if they grew crops, harvested and stored them, they would have a better chance of surviving hard times. Where people had tracked animals or travelled with their herds, settled farming became the norm. But not everyone changed their ways. Many people didn't want to settle down, or bad harvests, droughts, floods, war would send them back on the move. In Britain and Ireland, nomadic peoples were probably well established by about 1000 AD. There were the Celtic traveller peoples, the Irish travellers who called themselves the Parvi or Mincas, and across the Irish Sea there were the Scottish travellers, the Norkin. They had their own languages. The Irish travellers talked the Gammon and the Scottish travellers spoke the Bula Ragad. Both have sometimes been called the Cant. Some travellers worked the land. Others were musicians and storytellers who brought entertainment and news to the people of the countryside. Some were horse dealers, tinsmiths and metalworkers. For centuries they lived in tents and travelled mostly on foot. One traditional name for the Irish travellers was An Lucht Shul, which means the walking people. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, a people called the Roma or Romanis had been travelling west, starting from northwest India. The word Roma comes from an old word Rom, meaning man or husband. It isn't related to Rome or Romania, they just look similar. In the late 1400s, a group arrived in Scotland. They were received by King James IV. They told fortunes, had exotic-looking clothes, darker skin and an Indian language, Romani. They stood out from everyone else and were referred to as Egyptians, a word that eventually turned into gypsies. As time went on, they did much of the same work as other travellers. Some were specialists in other trades, like wickerwork, charcoal burning, even pearl fishing and snake catching. In the 1500s and 1600s, there were some attempts to expel them from the land. In some cases, people were deported across the sea, or even hanged for being gypsies. But by the 1700s, Romani gypsies lived all over Britain. Some families mixed with the travellers who were already here. Down in England and Wales, like elsewhere, most nomads lived in tents made from arched sticks stuck in the ground with canvas on top. But some gypsies and travellers put their tents on flat carts to keep them off the cold, wet ground. The traveller's wagon was born. The bow-top became a common sight in Ireland as well as Britain. Later, wagons were purpose-built in various shapes and sizes, mobile works of art. Over the years, travellers went back and forth across the Irish Sea and the borders of mainland Britain. Some worked on the canals and motorways, fought in wars for their country, and many became self-employed. They did jobs like scrap metal collecting, roofing, flour selling, and tarmacking, trades you could take on the move. trades that continue today. Romany people from other parts of Europe continued to come, in small numbers at first, with more arriving in the 21st century. So those three words, gypsies, Roma, travellers, they hide a lot of meaning. They get used in lots of ways, but they're just the names of people, like English, Indian, or Italian. Over the years, some travelling people have settled down. Some move less often, and others hardly at all. But however they live, they take their languages, memories, and cultures with them. They are proud of their roots and their family, and why shouldn't they be? After all, if you go back far enough, there's a traveller in every story.
This is a time to celebrate the contributions of the Gypsy Roma traveller community on music, dancing, arts, poetry, storytelling, just to name a few things. And this is a fantastic way to see some of those amazing contributions that this community or communities have made. For example, what is quite traditionally thought of as Spanish dancing, the flamenco, is actually rooted in Gypsy traveller culture. The Gypsy Roma traveller community has produced some incredibly talented and famous people. For example, in 1910, Django Reinhardt was born, and he went on to be the first major significant jazz musician in the world. Perhaps a more modern day example from one of these communities is Tyson Fury, who is of course the world heavyweight boxing champion. So there are huge contributions to our everyday society that have come from these communities. The Gypsy Roman travel community has been in the UK or Great Britain for over 500 years. That's a pretty long time. Currently, there's around 250,000 to 300,000 members of that community living in the UK today. Now, as the video said, not all of this community lives in what is thought they traditionally do in caravans. Many live in houses or in permanent dwellings, and they pass on their traditional skills and values to the next generation. Now, the main purpose of Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month is to try and embrace some of this fantastic storytelling, music, dance, poetry, arts that we can bring into our own communities and have been here for some 500 years. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some links up which I'd like you to have a little look at and see if you can discover something new and exciting, and maybe perhaps you can send me some of those things that you have seen and listened to. Okay. Before I go, what I want you to do is have a little listen to this wonderful song that I'm going to play now. And this is a song that is rooted in that Gypsy Roma Traveller group.
They're moving a sun again, pushed from pillar to post again. The old traditions, will they come to an end? The roads they once were our home, we're not allowed now to travel again, just like the old times again. Our basic rights who will defend the travelling man? we face the tough times again. The anguish is on us again. Education for our children, yet again we're denied. They're picking on the downtrodden again. The viciousness we cannot comprehend. Clutching straws, no helping hand to lend. Still we keep our dignity. The bad times, they've come back again. They're transporting the gypsies again. The Europeans learn, will you win? A man's just a man. Poor gypsies persecuted again. From countries to countries again. Are we the root of politicians' problems? We're not the worst of mankind. Our future looks bleak again. In this world we have very few friends. The racial hatred, from where does it stem? Mankind, open your mind.
Thank you guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Have a wonderful week, do what you can and stay safe.